Hello there. Hi. How you doing? It's been quite a while, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's been long enough, and I don't know how to explain that feeling. I was looking at when, like, if you couldn't tell, this entire video is just going to talk about, like, that one really big video that just came out before this one. I'm obviously, of course, talking about the 10-second look pin meme. No, like, honestly, all I'll say about that is I thought it was funny. Jumping on a trend. Who cares? Inside joke. Anyway, I've been wanting to make a rant video in response to what I've already made for a long time now, and I'm like, oh, it's been like so many. It came out in like November. This is like, it was like the end of the month too, so it was like a good like 3 months. It's not actually that long looking at it. At least by the time that I'm recording this. God knows when this video will actually be up. But yeah, I've been wanting to make a video like this for a while to try and touch on like other things I just couldn't for the sake of time. And believe me, we're going to be spending a lot of fucking time in this follow-up. But there were a lot of reasons that I was not able to do that. And the first, that's probably the most obvious to anyone who normally watches my content. So, yeah, the three of you that watch my rants, like, you're probably wondering, why don't we see your face? The simplest answer to that is, you can't. Nothing's wrong with my face, nothing serious like that, but for reasons that are very technical and I would rather not get into, it has been a pain to try and take footage from an outside source and put it on my computer, or like, God forbid, a flash drive or something. But like, yeah, hard drive, external, who cares what your terminology is. I've been trying to get like a webcam for the longest time just so I could just stream the footage just right to the computer, but that's been taking a back seat in priority due to other factors, which include but are not limited to a lot of random, unexpected, dumb stuff. I don't really know how else to put it. I've been dealing with so many behind-the-scenes issues that it feels like Murphy's Law. I am not exaggerating when I say literally, like, the worst things that could have happened. Like, you remember that... Oh, okay, so, before I get ahead of myself, there is a lot of things that I really, really want to say, but I know a lot of people here are probably just more interested in what I have to say about the video. So if you are more interested in my video, which I fully understand, I have no judgment for you, obligatory time code. There you go. Skip to this, and I'll start talking for, like, the rest of the video on that big-ass video. But for now, until then, I'm going to complain. So when I say that literally everything that could have gone wrong happened, I mean it. Like, oh, what's the worst? Does your computer blow up? Kind of? Like, like, there's actually, like, There's actually been, like, some crazy... Okay, so, I don't know why, but for some reason, my computer keeps randomly crashing. And when I say it's crashing, I mean, like, it'll just freeze and, like, go to blue screen. Sometimes doesn't even give me that luxury. It's happened so frequently that I've actually been terrified of turning on the thing at all. And I had to reinstall the OS and actually lost some software that I couldn't transfer over, including the editing software I had put on there, which was just wonderful. So I have to go back to All Reliable in order to even make this video that you're watching right now, listening really. Welcome to the podcast, I guess. And there's just so much stuff that I haven't had the chance to do because of this and other outside factors that don't really relate to anything production-wise, but like, and yeah, some of it is monetary, but I haven't been able to get a pop filter for the mic, so I'm putting on like a cloth face mask just so like I can do the bare minimum of trying to make this as least of an arduous process to watch as possible. I had to unplug my mic from that computer back into my laptop. I had to... The main reason I needed a new computer is because the Adobe software on this laptop does not work anymore. Audition won't even open. It's that bad. Hi there. Just to emphasize a point, fucking Premiere is also, for no reason, not opening up. Same with Photoshop or Illustrator. Like, none of my Adobe products will work. At first, it was just this piece of shit. Now it's all of them. So I am left with no other choice than to use... So I'm recording this on GarageBand because I am literally lacking any utility other than that. And it's so annoying too, because I spent like such a hiatus trying to make that autism awareness video. And then, like, during that whole time, I actually was working on a video. But now I'm going to have to go on a hiatus because I literally can't do anything worth quality. But I feel like I need to get this video out soon, otherwise it's like... there's just going to be a lot of open-ended... there's just a lot of stuff I need to course correct. Like, not to say I got anything wrong, but I just need to elaborate on for the sake of transparency, because there's just... let's just say there are some things that I need to say that... I feel are important. At least that warrant enough for me to rush this out as soon as I can. And I've been waiting for as long as I can, but like, man, it's just... I only have so much patience, man. I was talking to like the manufacturer of the computer. Like, they said, oh, just send us back some RAM and we'll give you some new RAM. And I'm like, okay, I guess there's no guarantee that's gonna fix the issue, but like, whatever. Like, if that doesn't happen, I'll probably have to send back the whole goddamn machine. Hey, so remember when I said I had to render this twice? Well, it turns out that the piece of shit won't accept the video a second time because the file's too big. So I actually had to get Lightworks, some free software, in order to finish this edit. I think I might be going completely Adobe free in the future. Check back next update when I download GIMP. Also, for an update on what I was talking about earlier, or maybe I didn't talk about it yet. I don't even remember. RAM came in, computer still crashes. I sent it back to them for repairs, waiting to see that again. And yeah, everything is hell, but everything is being fixed. And it's very weird for me right now. There's just so much stuff I want to do, but not enough time to do it, in which I want to make content that I can pump out more easily and effortlessly without having to rely on actually doing a whole process. But easier said than done. I don't know what to tell you. I did like something to update on since like the last rant or whenever I was on screen. I can't show it to you now, but I actually got like a new chair. I got a dead-ass gaming chair. Not the most drip-worthy type of chair. It's just some crap from Staples, but like it works, gives me lumbar support. Feels like an actual workstation now, which I'm very thankful for. Other than that, there really hasn't been anything worth note of talking about, except for like one thing that I did not expect to have to follow up on. If you saw my previous rant video, which I know you didn't, but let's say hypothetically you did, you would probably know that the latter half of that entire video was me complaining about some guy defaming me and some of my friends, like slanderizing us, and that they were able, my friend Sean, he was able to take like legal action to like get him to take the account down, and we probably wouldn't hear about him anymore. The fact that I'm talking about him, you probably know where I'm going with this. The one who I referred to as dipshit is back, and he tried to reinstate the channel. And long story short, he is going to court. And there's actual legal documentation about it right now. It has been straining on the mental health of my friends. Well, really, Sean. He's the one taking it to court. And it's very upsetting that he was just dead ass that stubborn that he was willing to risk going to jail and paying out the ass to do it. So yeah, that's the situation. Court systems are a pain in the ass. I have, weirdly enough, more than one friend going through that right now. And it's long and arduous and obnoxious, and the legal system is way too slow for what it is, but what can you do, I guess? Wish him the best of luck. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's pretty open and shut, but you can never tell nowadays. So that's really all in terms of recap. Now I can finally actually talk about the main attraction. The absolute unit. This big chungus of a goddamn project. This was what I've been teasing for the latter half of maybe a year or two. Like, I've been working on that video on and off. To give you a perspective, the audio in that video that you hear, it was recorded in December of 2019. But I didn't actually do that much in terms of developing the video that far because I was focused on pumping out the Nuzlocke as fast as I could, because I just really wanted that to be over and done with. I straight up thought, oh, it was 5 years I was working on it. No, it was just 4 years. It just felt that goddamn long. But it doesn't matter. Yeah, so the moment I was done with that, all of my effort was put into the autism video, which that video, I tried to do some smaller stuff in between, obviously when it comes to the content I make, some of it I was trying to do easier stuff in between. I was after Nuzlocke, I did the April Fool's video. I always try to get an April Fool's video in if I can. I talk about my computer. I talk about I do another Jack's Films edit, which was fun. But man, I was not expecting for that video to take up so much of my attention. Let me tell you something, man. When I recorded the audio for that and looked at how long it took, I was absolutely left aghast as to why it took so fucking long. How long the audio file was is what I mean to say. Because it didn't feel like it was that long that I was talking. But that raw audio was 3 hours long. The most arduous process of that entire video was cutting up the audio. I took out an hour's worth of audio in order to make that video work the way it does. I arguably could have taken out even more. But at that point I'm nah. That's kind of the mental hurdle that I had to partake in when creating this project, is I had to go, no, I'd rather not, because it was just that ridiculously large. I've never worked on a project as large as it. Even the Nuzlocke, with all the effort that I put into that, most of that was in the artwork itself. It's not the most glamorous art, but it was something that I just made for the sake of putting my little spin and personality onto it. And aside from the intro and the art, there was almost no effort put into it on my part. It was literally just recording myself and occasionally having a funny text pop up or whatever. But the thing with the intimidating thing about the autism video is that I was planning to have things edited all around the entire time. I do not know how Pyrocynical is able to make a 7-hour video and have it completely chock full of edits the entire time, and like throw meme after meme after meme and like every chance he gets, and it ends up being like, how the fuck did he only finish that in like, what was it, 4 months? Like, how many months? Like, a long ass time. But like, oh my god, I don't know how anyone does it. Like, I'm like, oh, I'll throw my hands in the ring, I'll try to do that myself. No, this is the last time I ever make anything that long. Because, or at least that complicated that long. Because that was hell on earth. Holy shit, I do not have the endurance to do that again. Maybe if I find myself really passionate about something, but I doubt it. I doubt I would ever make it that long, though. It was a daunting task. So I had to cut corners in order to keep my fucking sanity. As you can tell, a lot of the video is like static imagery and whatever. And I try to spice it up occasionally where I think it's appropriate or funny. But it was arduous. I don't know how else to say it other than that. It was just crazy. But regardless, I did it, and I'm very proud of the end product. The only thing I regret is it rendered really poorly. But like I said, with a project like this, the only thing that I could retaliate with is I don't fucking care enough to do anything about it. And, like, this is the thing, okay? With a project like this, the way I look at this is not a measure of my quality as an editor, although I do put in a lot of effort into it. This is my attempt at making some kind of a PSA, is the best way I could put it. And when it comes to something like that, quality isn't necessarily the most important factor that you can attribute to that. At least in my opinion. I just wanted the information out there, and I wanted to do the best I could with showcasing this viewpoint. Obviously, I would want to keep the attention of the audience as best I could, but you think I have the room in my storage to pre-render? Nah, son. That's why I got the new computer, but whatever. Anyway, that is that was the hell of the production side of things. And I guess to address the elephant in the room, because I haven't really directly acknowledged it, though I have admitted to it, like in the video. Yes, I am indeed autistic. It's not really something that I've ever tried to hide. It's not something I'm really ashamed about. That being said, I do think that it does provide me with a perspective that I don't think I would have had otherwise. I have this rare opportunity where I do have the condition, but at the same time I'm able to properly communicate my thoughts and feelings in an effective manner that neurotypicals could comprehend. So it I do feel like, and that's a major reason why I made this video in the first place, is because if you're given a perspective that not many people have, and you're not going out of your way to try and promote it, then it almost makes me feel slightly complicit in just like the misinformation. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I'm going to change the fucking world with this. Like, no, obviously I'm not. like, barely anyone knows I exist, and I almost kind of want to keep it that way. Because the more attention you get, the more bullshit you have to deal with, you know? I am very comfortable with being, like, low-key. But unfortunately, that does mean that I don't get to have, like, as much of a reach as I could otherwise. And that's the unfortunate thing. And I never care whether or not people want to watch my videos or not. Like, people choose to tune into my stuff, and I'm very appreciative of that. But ever since that one drama video about the Valley folk, I've come to realize I don't care about trying to garner attention at all. Like, I don't, like, if there's a trend that I think I can jump on, like, I'm not saying I'm not prone to jumping on it. Like, I made the Look Pimp meme, but, like, I relegated it to something that's an inside joke. If I wanted to be a real trend chaser, I would have made it something that, you know, at least some people know about. Who the fuck gives a shit about, like, Pokemon trainer Raul or whatever the hell he called himself? Was it Galvantula Rider? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Yeah, just, like, I've come to realize, like, obviously I'm thankful for that drama video for giving me, like, a boost so that I can actually be, like, picked up in an algorithmic sense, I guess. But, like, otherwise, like, as I am where I'm at right now, if I were to remain in the triple-digit range for the rest of my time on YouTube, I would not complain. Because already I think that is very ridiculous. And besides, subscribers don't even matter anymore. It's all about the views, baby! Yeah, let's go Mets! Anyway. So yeah, yeah, I'm autistic. I never really brought it up before, because why would I? It literally doesn't matter. It doesn't really change the context of my content, I don't think. Like, it's like, oh man, I really thought you were funny when I thought you were neurotypical, but like, now it's just cringe. It's like, like, doesn't really affect anything. Like, it just wasn't relevant to anything at all. Like, oh, hey guys, did you know I have a yoga mat in a corner of my room? Which I do, by the way, actually. But, like, it's just, who cares? It's inconsequential. But I guess for the sake of transparency's sake, for the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, yes, I'm autistic. I also have ADHD/ADD. I think it's just ADHD, honestly. And I also have, I think it's dysgraphia, it's called. Basically a thing that makes it difficult for me to write. Which is why I use, like, stuff like text-to-speech and speech-to-text softwares on the computer all the time, because it's just faster for me. I cannot type that fast. Actually making text files for videos is an arduous task for me because of that, which is very fucking epic, as you can imagine, being an editor. Oh boy, okay. So that's basically the hodgepodge of what I'm diagnosed with. Yes, before you ask, the video is an adaptation of my actual real-life senior thesis. I am very proud of how that came out. Like, it was tweaked a little bit when I was recording it. There were some errors that I corrected, and obviously, as you could tell through editing, which I will get to when it comes up, or you know, I'll just talk about it now, I guess. like, there would be parts in the paper, like, just as an example, there would be parts in the paper where I would say, like, higher functioning and lower functioning, when sometime during the development of the video, I learned that those are actually harmful descriptors or discrepancies. They're not good to say in relation to ASD, because like when it was explained to me, it made a lot of sense, because it's like, oh, just because like you have like certain setbacks doesn't make you any less functional than anyone else. And it's like, yeah, that does make sense, I guess. So that's why I replaced like lower functioning with higher needs and high functioning with lower needs, which was very confusing when trying to figure out what to replace what with, as you could imagine. So yeah, I replaced that because I tried to remove as much ableist language as I could. Just stuff that I was ignorant of when originally writing the paper, that I only found out later through other voices on social media, like on Instagram and stuff, that or YouTube, stuff that I was just unaware of to begin with. That, along with another really big glaring issue that I will also address later, that I was just not privy of, that I gave a quick disclaimer of. I'm going to have to explain the shit out of that, and this video is already probably like so long. Get ready for multiple feature-length films worth of disclaimers. Holy crap. I haven't even talked about like the video point by point yet, but I guess I'll go into that. Okay, so that's all for the disclaimers as of right now. So yeah, let's begin, I guess. Starting off with, there is the intro. This is basically me reading the I forget what it's called. The summary paragraph that you have at the beginning of the paper to pretty much tell the reader what they're going to read about before they read it. Like a pseudo-thesis statement, almost. I forget what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about if you've ever studied any form of literacy in your life. But yeah, it's, that intro was the first thing that I worked on in the entire video, and I was under the impression, oh, I'm going to be editing the next 2 fucking hours like this. Nope. No, I did not. And thank God. Like, I'm very impressed with how I was able to handle that intro, but like I do feel like it probably does the best job at retaining the audience's attention and like getting people interested and hooked and wanting to watch. And I did spend a fair bit of time on it. But man, does the quality dip from there. Yeah, no regrets with that. It's just kind of its own thing. Then, yeah, so there is probably like a good question that I could see people asking me, like, why did you make this your senior thesis? And on top of that, why would you make a video adaptation in response to it? Well, to answer the first, so this is interesting. When, like, obviously everyone has to take, like, a thesis class during their senior year, to my knowledge. And for me, like, I graduated with a bachelor's in communications and a minor in graphic design, by the way. And I wanted to, like, if I was going to make a thesis, it would, like, I came down to the conclusion, it would have to naturally be something in close relation to me and something that I would have to be passionate about, especially if I'm going to spend the next half a fucking year working on the goddamn thing. And, like, this is the thing about me and how I view my autism. It's like, I always am very passionate about, like, my feelings towards, like autism, what people say about autism, but I've never actually really done anything. And then I'm like, well, okay, so that makes sense. Well, how can I relate that back to communications? Well, how about how it's been represented in the media? Because, like, I didn't have to do any research, and even I knew, like, yeah, they make them out to be really fucking smart, don't they? And lo and behold, like, yeah, they do. They really do. Yeah, just for some reason, it's like, if I had to theorize, the reason for this is to make the content of the media more engaging and entertaining. But, like, there's also, like, the consequence of what people take away from that media. It's just so commonplace where everyone's just like, oh, we're just going to, we're going to make this, this content for the sake of entertaining people for, like, for an hour or two. But, like, the actual ramifications, like, this affects people's perceptions of the way they see the world, man. Like, it's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. Like, not many people realize the power that communications have. Like, I remember I took a class that was basically, the class was called Children and Media, and the consensus was children are very susceptible to, like, the information that they process, so they're very easily influenced by a lot of things. And I'm sure you don't need me to go through examples to tell you that, considering all the dream stands out there. But to be serious for a moment, like, the easiest example that they gave to us in that class was stuff like commercials targeted for children, such as Hot Wheels or Easy Bake Ovens. Like, those were the two big ones, because, like, for some reason toy companies are very gender skewed for some reason. It's whatever. And I can confirm I was definitely a victim of that manipulation, because I remember I saw, like, on TV, like, this commercial for a Hot Wheels set with, like, a giant robot that would try to destroy the cars. And I'm like, oh, Mom, I want that so badly. And I finally get it. It just sits, like, ginormously in my room. And then I try to use it, and I'm like, why is it not as cool as it was in the commercial? And the reason is because of these things we don't really think about. The fast-paced editing, the music, the intensity of the narration, like all of that in combination leads to, like, this cookie-cutter experience that these companies have been using to, like, push their shit onto children with, just so that they can make money. It's not for the fact that they'll have fun when they have it. It's so that they can convince them to sell it. It's so that they can sell it and convince the parents to buy it, because the child won't shut up. And yeah, it just kind of, it feels awkward, man. It's very awkward. Personally, this kind of manipulation, I feel, is annoying. I don't know how else to better put it, but yeah, it exists, and like, and I know what some people are gonna say. It's like, oh, children are just easily manipulated. No, man, like, you grow up, you're no better. All right, like, it's adults are petty for no good reason. Like, they're just as big of children, and they're just as easily manipulated. I could get political, but I won't. I just will not, because that is not what I do here. But I'm sure that whatever you think of is correct. Anyway, so yeah, yeah, that's why I decided to make my video on that, is because of the importance of that representation and how general audience will think. Because, like, depending on how well it's executed, this could, like, increase or decrease ableistic perceptions. And I'm trying to go out of my way to make this PSA, like, in video format to help spread that awareness. And I was really confident in, like, my paper as well. And the thing that gave me that confidence for sure was I remember when we had that thesis class, we would show up and, like, we had to think of what our paper topic was going to be. And I think, like, shortly before I came to class, like, I had that idea in my head, but I still wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to go with it. He was going to everyone around the class, and, like, everyone, like, had some ideas, and it was just, like, questioning, like, how so? Like, he could tell it wasn't really all that well thought out, like, what they wanted to talk about. And then he came to me, and I said my thing, and he just goes, good. And then he just goes on to the next part. He did not ask for me to elaborate or anything. Like, he could tell, like, I knew what I was talking about, even when I had just, like, thought of it as a potential topic. That's how I knew I was going down the right path, because I had, like, it fully thought out, the concept of what I wanted to talk about. And doing the research was so surprisingly easy. I do not know what it is, but there are way more people much more professionally capable than I am who have actually done multiple studies on this and came to the same exact conclusion. I was quoting so many people doing that stuff, and, like, let me tell you, man, it's so demoralizing, like, thinking about, like, this is, like, the only way you portray, like, a specific minority of people, and it's like example after example. It's exhaustive, man. It's ridiculous. Like, we're not up to it yet in the video, but, like, I do bring up the example of, like the slow or basically the fucking stupid stereotype, like the one extreme or the other kind of thing. But, like, I rarely found an example where people were doing that, probably because they didn't want to ever admit that the dumb character was autistic, because they didn't want to offend anyone. So I go in and I talk about, like, you know, I give my general introductions and whatever, and I talk about the DSM-5. Can I just say, and, like, I'm sorry to all of my psych major viewers or whatever, but if I have to hear that this thing is called a Bible one more goddamn time, I'm going to rip my goddamn balls off. Like, I get it, okay? It's the de facto thing you look at. What is this powerhouse of the cell bullshit you're throwing at me? Alright, get out of here. Whatever. Alright, so now that I was able to get that out of my system, yeah, basically, for my paper, and for the sake of disclosure, I was talking about the way in which the DSM-5 describes ASD. The thing with that is, like, I try to keep it, like, point by point, beat by beat, but obviously I had to, like, reword it in my own words, so it's probably not going to be, like, as exact as it would be in there. But again, I'm not going to plagiarize the DSM-5. That's probably going to be an instant, like, kick in the rear for me. But, like, at the same time, I want to say the DSM-5 probably does a way better job at, like, describing the nuances and open-endedness of it than I could. Well, I do think I did a good job of putting it into as much of a layman's term as I could. I would highly recommend, if you get the chance, to read it for yourself. This, by the way, does not make it so that you can diagnose people, okay? You need a license for that. It also means that I can't either, even though I've read it. I can only theorize. But that doesn't give you the right to theorize, because I actually have experience both having it and viewing it. But that's regardless. DSM-5, from what I understand, I think there are just, like, some people who are just, like, also, like, they've got their opinions of the thing, and I get it. I'm not going to get into that, but yes, it exists, and for what it does really, really good. I also want to bring up, like, I mentioned, we don't, like, Asperger's is basically autism, because that was, like, in one of the quotes or whatever. Just as a heads up, we don't use the word Asperger's anymore, and not just because it sounds like you're saying ass, as funny as that is, South Park, no, I'm kidding, as funny as that is, the term is no longer in use, mainly because it is the name of the, oh boy, it is the name of the guy who, quote unquote, discovered the disorder, even though he didn't actually discover it. It was like, I forget her name, but it was some Russian woman in, yeah, it was just some woman in Russia who, like, discovered it or whatever. I forget her name, but she picked up on these, like, these links and, like, pretty much was able to... But this is the thing. Like, before World War II, who the fuck gave a shit about a woman in Russia? Like, whatever. But, you know, like, credit to her, I guess, if you want to look more into that. I found that out by some guy who, like, went over, like, the history of the disorder, which was very cool. If I can find the video, I'll probably link it, but, like, I don't trust myself to do that. So, yeah. By the way, Asperger himself, he was a Nazi scientist. That's why we don't, that is why we don't, you would think, oh, it's because we don't want to give credit to someone who did, no, it's because he was a Nazi. His goal was to look into it to promote more acceptable traits, like, you know, classic pro-eugenic Nazis. Yeah, it was bad, so no one calls it that anymore. We just call it all autism. Right, so now we get into the visual indicators of the different stereotypes. To represent the savant stereotype, I literally took the album art of Vario by Savant. Like, his name literally is Savant, like his artist name, I mean. And by the way, he actually has savantism, so he's allowed to call himself that. Although it'd be weird, it's like if I called myself autistic, autist, like, you know, hey guys, autist here. It works, I guess. By the way, if you have not listened to any Savant song, look up his back catalog, because it is ridiculously good. Like, there's a reason this guy has savantism, it is because he's able to pump out stuff all the time, and it's of high quality and of very above average length per track, by the way. Like, this guy makes, like, albums with the music, like, I think he almost did, like, monthly at one point. Or like, semi-annually. Like, it came out, like, it came out as frequent as a FNAF game, you know? Well, not anymore. Yeah, I think the guy just came out with, like, a new album, like, earlier in February. Like, I don't want to say, like, this month, because this video's probably... I can tell you right now, this video ain't coming up in February. Whatever. Yeah, just, great artist. Like his stuff. Very easy example for me to use for savantism. And when it comes to portraying... Okay, so... For anyone unfamiliar with Super Smash Brothers, the description of someone slow or fucking stupid, or brain dead, as I should more accurately put it, the imagery of Incineroar and Ness might not make any sense if you have no familiarity with them. But the joke here is Incineroar is the slowest character in the game, and people who play Ness are constantly accused of being brain dead because he's an easy character to play. That is the joke. Thank you, Tri-State Area. For the next stereotype, I had the cold machine, or unfeeling machine, however you would prefer to call it. And for the representation of that, I used the imagery of Slot Machine from Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, if I wanted to be completely based, I could have easily have just used Launcher Spider instead, because it is infinitely cooler of a design. But for representing this, I wanted something that is most definitely machine looking, and I think people would probably have gotten a little bit confused of why is he using a spider? Like, obviously, like, you like, I'm not calling Slot Machine like some obscure pick or whatever, but like, look, man, in order to like really concentrate on this project and get it done properly, I had to incorporate a lot of my interests into it. That's why you have like a lot of the music in the background. I didn't get a chance to talk about it yet, so I'll use this as an opportunity. The music I was using, like, some of it was my own at the beginning and the end. Some of it was my own. But a lot of it came from a lot of different video games that I played over the years. Some that I played after I had recorded that original audio. And let me tell you that those OSTs were really good. Like, I used like songs from Hades. Shout out to Hades, by the way. Great fucking game. I used stuff from Celeste. Same deal. Absolutely wonderful fucking game. I took some songs from Coffee Talk. I thought the lo-fi music would be a perfect fit, and I was absolutely right. Please play Coffee Talk. It's a very short indie game. It's like one of those. It's one of those visual novel kind of games, but there is actually some gameplay involved with it, especially if you want like 100% completion. Then I got some music from Metroid Dread, which is a great game, and I love it. It is my first Metroid game that I've played to completion, and it's great. And what else was there? Oh yeah, I got some music from Monster Hunter Rise. Same deal. My first Monster Hunter game. Absolutely love it. Another recommendation. And then some of the music I used was just regular music that I listened to that I really, really like. I gave, in the description of that video, credit to all of the music used. And I want to highlight... I want to highlight the individual music used that didn't come from, like, video games necessarily. Although, to be fair, the first example is, it's Guns by Kawaii Sprite, the instrumental version, because I haven't had a chance to talk about it here, because, again, it's like my autism, like, there's no reason to, but, I'm sorry, fam. I like Friday Night Funkin'. I know, Cardinal Sin, but, like, I don't know, the art's cool. I think the tone is very funny. Also, the music fucking slaps, and if you disagree, you're dumb. Yeah, I backed the Kickstarter. Check out Optical Drop in the credits when that game comes out in 2057. Other songs that I used were Breathe by Delia, but the MLK remix. That song, that was a song that when I first heard it, I didn't really think much of it, but the more I listened to it, the more it resonated with me, like, later on in my life. That song is, like, so... MLK is just a genius in general. Like, it's weird, because it sounds like I'm saying, like, what, Martin Luther King? No, like, this guy, his initials are also MLK. It's fucking... That's just what he calls himself. It makes things very awkward. Just don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Yeah, great song. Recommend checking that out if you get a chance. I had to like edit a lot of these songs so they would loop properly, and I'm very proud of the way I was able to loop this song specifically. Then there was a song "It Goes in Waves" by Inzo, Bluka, and Align. Another great song. Then after that, there's "Voyage" by Keenan Matthias. That came from an EP of his that I just recommend just listening to that whole EP. It's on a record label called, it was Saturate Records, I believe. You could just download for free off their Bandcamp, by the way. That and It Goes in Waves. That song is also free on the Bandcamp of, what the fuck is it called? SSK1. It's the sister label to Wakan. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it, man. Then Don't Let Me Down by Black Mill, featuring some other person that no one cares as much about. So, Black Mill, great dubstep artist. I look at like this roster, I'm like, I need to put a drum and bass track somewhere, and like, his music, no matter what, is always just so beautiful and relaxing. So I'm like, yeah, that fits. glad I was able to shill that music, because I really do like it. But back to the video itself. Those were the three tenets that I went in, like, assuming that I would have to talk about. And while I do end up having to talk about all three of them at some point, the overwhelming amount of savantism that I had to address was ridiculous! And I'm kind of upset about it. But I kind of knew that going in. But whatever. I could talk all day about, like, the absurdity of all that crap, but you guys aren't here to hear me complain about literally every pebble, grain of sand on a beach. You're here to see what I have to say about all these goddamn series that I just name dropped. And what a better place to start with than The Good Doctor. Now, I need to make an immediate disclaimer. I am a fake gamer. Not in a literal sense, but in the sense of the creation of this video. I did not watch everything that I made an example of. The Good Doctor being one of them. I did watch the trailer, and I did get a perspective of the show from secondhand sources, that being people that I knew who have seen the show personally, and they were able to tell me about some stuff. Listen, if I had all the time in the world to work on this paper, I 100% would sit down, glue my ass to the seat and consume that media. Unfortunately, this was a college essay. I did not have that luxury, so unfortunately some series and movies had to get the chopping block. The Good Doctor was an example of that. I was not able to watch a full episode in its entirety. However, I got enough of an impression from the trailer to make my consensus on it known. To be fair, most of anything that I have to say about these shows I've already said in that video. So I'm not going to add too much to what I have to say about all these series, but that's just where I stand with The Good Doctor. It's okay. In the grand scheme of things, it is far removed from the most offensive shit out there. It doesn't make it okay though. I cannot tell you the quality of the writing or anything. I can only describe its concept and how I feel about it. And there you go. That video explains my feelings on it. The next one that I talk about, Touch, that show I did not expect to find in my research. I knew about this show beforehand, but I had no idea that the kid was ASD. Like, I just did not know. But it was very convenient for me because I actually saw the pilot episode of that show. So I actually had a bit of a perspective to draw upon. Granted, it was like a few years ahead of when I actually started writing this. I don't know how long ago it was since I've seen it, but like I do know that I did at one point see it, and I retained enough of the information to get a general gist of what they were going for. Plus, I saw like other trailer footage just to refresh myself. And yeah, that show is it's a bit pretentious. I don't know what it is about like the heroes guy, but like I like what he does when it comes to the idea of just like, what if just anyone woke up with powers? What would happen? And like from a novel concept that's genuinely like interesting. But it's also very clear that he like the benefit of a show like Heroes is that you had such a wide range of perspectives that no one is like emphasized so much over the other. But then you got into later seasons, and that definitely changed when they made like one guy the de facto protagonist, even though he kind of was already. But it's like what about Hero though? Whatever. The point is, when you have a show like Touch, and it's just focused on one ability from one kid, there's a lot of focus on it. And if you go out of your way to be like, oh, he's got fucking autism, then it's like, well, you better make sure you do that right. Because like the implication of, oh, he's autistic and that's why he has this power is like very concerning and very fucking dumb. But I'm gonna save my tirade for like the actual like piece of shit that deserves that. But yes, I'm going to move on because the next TV show is quite the treat. Girl Meets World was a trip. I've only ever seen one episode in its entirety, and it actually was for a different class that I took like the year prior. But like I spoke with the teacher to like brush up on notes, to brush myself up and like familiarize myself with that episode that she showed, so that because like there's no way I'm going to go out of my way to re-watch a Disney Channel show, especially when I would have to pay for it. Plus the wiki was helpful in that regard as well. Like I didn't get to see like everything in the show. I just saw like key points of that one episode at least. Just to give a general consensus, Girl Meets World is typical Disney Channel schlock. I don't know how else to put it other than it's just got bad child actors and like cringe level humor. I don't know what they were smoking to give a character the name Farkle and Smackle, but fuck me, I guess. It made for some funny content for me to react to in the video. I'm not exaggerating when I say my first D&D character was Lucetius Farkles, and like I made the name up from like ridiculous sounding names to make it sound as funny as possible. Then I was told, oh, you know Lucetius is like a real name, right? And I'm like, is it? It's like I guess it is. I just did not know about that. And then Farkle, what do you fucking know? Like, even when I try to be original, I can't. Man. Shit sucks, but whatever. Yeah, that was a show. I really don't have much else to say about it, so I'm just going to leave it at that. In that it exists. Okay, so now there's Atypical. Atypical is one of those shows that the more you think about it, the worse it gets. Because I can tell you right now, when I was watching it, I was engaged the entire time, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so accurate. Oh wow, like, geez, like, I've been there, I feel that perspective, and like, I especially felt that with that igloo scene that I described in the video as well. But when I was done watching the first season, and keep in mind, I only watched the first season. My critique is of the first season. I have no idea what they did with it afterwards. I cannot tell you. But from what I hear, it seems like it treads the same ground. So, as far as like critiquing the show, the more I thought about it, the more I go, huh? Because like when I was watching it, like in my head, like, oh, this feels like a really good show, and then I go to start writing, and as I'm writing, I'm like realizing like slowly, fuck, this show was bad, wasn't it? Like, this is kind of the epiphany I came to. It's like, it's kind of hilarious. I don't know what to say, man. That's just how it came to be. It's unfortunate too, because I did like the show. I like the stuff that it does. I think the idea of being able to focus on like the people around him as well as himself is a smart idea, because a lot of these shows or these movies or these concepts, they're just focused on the perspective of the one with the disorder or disability. It really doesn't matter. Disability shows, it's technically a disability. So, like, to see the perspective of the parents, the sister, like the friends, like I do feel like there was a drama there for the sake of it. Like a little bit of it was kind of forced. But I do feel like these characters were really well portrayed. I think that the situations that they found themselves in was nice. I think like the romance plot with the sister was neat for what it's worth. But otherwise it's just kind of like, yeah, this show is overcompensating like way too hard. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say he's Amelia Bedelia, man. If you don't know who that was, she was a children's book series where she was the maid to some wealthy white assholes or something, and like she would take every bit of slang literally. Like, oh, go fly a kite. She'd literally go fly a kite in like a raging storm or whatever. Like, that was the joke. That is literally what they do with this character. Like, his, like, a running gag is that he just, like, this is what I'm saying, man. If they just had at any point in the show him go, is that a figure of speech? Because, like, it wouldn't make sense if, if they really want to go that route. Because kid's not dumb. Alright? Like, he's not dumb. He's got, like, a stimuli issue for the most part. Like, my main issue is, like, he has, like, any trait you could give someone with autism, they give it to him. And he's meant to be the de facto, like, oh, like, if someone with autism, like, says or acts this way, it's because it's a part of the condition. No. like, don't get me wrong. Like, everyone is, like, different. But, like, for some one person to have every single one of these goddamn traits is, like, nah, it's just not real. That's not realistic, honestly. Like, first of all, if he's gonna hyper-focus or hyper-fixate on anything, like, if he's that interested in, like, the Antarctic region of biology, then, like, okay, sure. But at that point, he would have just been hyper-fixated on animals in general. Like, that's just how it goes. Like, I've met people who love animals, who are, like, obsessed with animals. Like, they study that because that's just what they're passionate about. And they are on the spectrum. But, like, this kid, nah, if they really wanted to be real, they would have made him a gamer. Straight up. But unfortunately, the boomers writing this have never touched a video game in their entire life. Probably because they've actually touched women. But I rest my case. This show does too much for its own good and overstepped on its scope. And it's kind of unfortunate because they had like such a prime opportunity to take advantage of that, but they just could not commit to like, why the fuck does he have to draw so good too, man? Like, you're either a walking Wikipedia article or you're an artist. You're not both, man. Whatever. Like, I guess that's not entirely true, but it's like, if he draws that good, he would have. No, I'm gonna stop myself before I walk into a tar pit. Listen, they're overcompensating. That is my TED Talk. Thank you. Anyway, Parenthood. I literally have nothing to say about this. I looked up like a scene from the show of like the kid going into like some Photoshop or whatever, some camera shop, and I'm like, oh, that seems nice. I have no idea what the hell else they do with this character or like any of the other characters. I don't know anything about the show all that well. I just pinpoint it as another example, and I make a Sam and Max joke because I am they fucking epic. And now, oh god, okay, the holy grail of examples. The one that pretty much all of the fucking papers that I researched on have mentioned at least once. Fucking Rain Man. Listen. This movie came out before even medical professionals knew what autism was. Alright? This shit was so ahead of its time that it cemented itself as the de facto example of autism. Is it the movie's fault? No, of course not. Like, it can't help that it's the one that gets pointed to. It just gets pointed to because it was like the first one to do that. And also had Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise in it, so like people wouldn't otherwise know about it. But like, for what they knew at the time, and even to this day, I think this film actually holds up. I do think it is a great movie to showcase an example of the condition. Like, obviously, there is the caveat of him just being able to count really fast. But he's not perfect. Like, when they're at the casino, he, like, miscounts, like, a wheel thing, and it's just like, uh-oh, or whatever he says. Like, he made a mistake. Like, he's not perfect. So that was cool, but, like, otherwise, like, yeah, that he does unfortunately fall into, like, okay, like, I say he falls into that savantist category. In the movie, like, there is a doctor that straight up says he is an autistic savant. So it's like, this is my theory. It really feels like a lot of these people pitch this idea of, oh, let's just have, like, the autistic guy be the smart guy. And then we can have, like, medical professionals, like, advocate for us. And then they show up and they're like, actually, this is more in line with savantism. And they're like, okay, we'll make him a savant instead. As well as autism, so we can still have the marketing pitch. It's so fucking dumb. It's so fucking dumb. But I guess that's just the nature of how the business works, which is... that feels like an entirely different topic to complain about, but whatever. And... this is the thing, is like, the reason why I'm willing to give this movie a lot more slack is it's not just because of its age, but, and it's not even just because of like how well it was able to accomplish certain things, but it's because the people involved do care. From what I read, Dustin Hoffman actually went and like interviewed and spent time with actual like individuals with the condition, and like was able to pick up traits and habits and learn their mannerisms and come to understand, like, you know, how they tick and whatever. And because of that, he just flawlessly falls into that. Like, I said in the video, it bears repeating. I refuse to believe that is actually Dustin Hoffman. Like, I think of, like, what was that? What was that movie where he did cross-dressing? Like, Lucy or something? I refuse to believe that's the same guy. Yeah, just overall, like, it's far from perfect, but, like, again, it's, like, the first example of anyone, like, attempting to do this kind of thing, so I'm willing to cut it some slack in that regard, because of how well it was able to accomplish that feat, despite all of that. Then I get into the topic of, romantic comedies. Yeah, for some reason, I was looking up, like, different examples, and this was such a common... This was such a... Like, such a common, like, genre of film to show up, that I just had to make it its own section. I had no time to watch any of these movies, so, for all I know, they could be, like, way less comedic than I'm aware of. Like, for all I know, Adam might not actually be funny at all. I honestly don't know. But, like, Monster on the Whale, absolutely. I could just tell you from the tone of the trailer. And, like, Snowcake, I think they try to play off, what was her name? The character's name, Vivian or whatever? Like, I think they try to play her off as, like as comedic relief, which is fun. But yeah, like, I don't have much to say about this other than, like, don't get me wrong. The shit that people with ASD can do can honestly be very funny because of the lack of self-awareness. But, and this is very important, it stops becoming funny the more times you point it out. Alright? Like, we are not a vehicle for your fucking laughter. Okay? Like, can we be funny? Sure. But just don't make it at our expense, you know? Don't make it out of our lack of self-awareness. Just, like, I'm gonna be real. A lot of the interactions tend to be a lot more cringe than actually funny. But, whatever. This is just a thing that exists, I guess. Oh my god. Okay. Mercury Rising. Anything I could say about Mercury Rising, I've already said. I would only recommend watching this out of, like the only way I can justify you watching this film is if you get a bunch of friends together and, like, get drunk off your fucking ass. Because this film, it's generic B-story schlock. And it's hilarious in all the wrong ways. And it's also stupidly offensive as well, on top of that. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, chalk it up to another pointless Bruce Willis movie, but whatever. This was before he actually ended up doing that crap, but, like, goes to show, he's always been there doing that. Although he doesn't actually look old and tired in this one, because it was in 99. Yeah, finding a way to stream the movie is obnoxious too. The only way I was able to do is it was only on Stars. If you have Stars, I had to, like, borrow someone else's account in order to watch it. But, yeah, by all means, if you're that curious, I do recommend Mercury Rising as a comedic hate watch. It's really bad. Speaking of really bad, Power Rangers, 2017, 2018, I forget. It doesn't matter. Piece of shit. I remember from the trailer, like, they had the guy who plays the Black Ranger glow black, and he's like, I'm black, and then the actual black guy who's supposed to be the autistic guy goes, no, you're not, and, like, that's supposed to be a joke, but, like, in the trailer, we didn't have that context that he was autistic, So it just kind of came off as like, oh, this was a bad joke. But now it's even worse because, wow, they're taking the atypical approach of just turning him into Amelia Bedelia. Fucking great. Then there's a thing with the color pencil. Again, this is another movie I didn't watch because do you give a shit if I watched literally the fucking Power Rangers? Like, this is less about the movie itself and like when I talk about it in this section of the video, and it's more about like the media surrounding it, because the reason I bring up the Power Rangers is because it's a perfect example of how the marketing for the movie was more important than the movie itself. And I was going ham on that. Like, I was like doing my best to point out like these articles just like, oh yes, they acknowledge it, therefore ableism is no more. Like, yeah, okay, sure. It's the equivalent of saying like, oh, I have a black friend, so I'm clearly not racist. You know, it's that kind of shit. And like, this is the thing. I always feel weird or like guilty whenever I compare like ableism or this situation to like other movements. Like with, like later in the video, I make comparisons with like MLK and Kathleen Jenner, and I'm just like if I have to make a MLK comparison, like in my opinion, like I feel like that argument should be null and void, because like anyone can say shit with MLK in comparison to it. But like, I don't know, like if I had to like make a comparison to like a leader of a civil rights movement for black equality, I'm pretty sure MLK would be like the de facto example. And that was my point. It's like, I'm not comparing myself to him. I'm just pointing at a movement and saying they had strong leadership, but autism doesn't have that luxury. Most people with disabilities don't really have that kind of a figurehead, because a figurehead would usually include someone a part of that, and having a disabled person in a leading position would be, one, not something anyone would want to force on anyone, and two, pretty fucking hard and stressful for the individual in question, because not everyone is really suited for a leadership position, let alone someone with a disability. Like, the best that we can do is just, like, I think the closest we got for someone with, like, ASD to be, like, a spokesperson is that, I forget her name. It's that little girl who had the "How dare you" speech about, like, the environment. She just pretty much okay boomered an entire generation of people. Yeah, just, like, that's the best we got. I was going to bring it up in the video, but, like, it took so long that it wasn't relevant anymore, so it's just like, I'll just cut it for time. Yeah, it sucks, man. It's like, no one cares about it anymore because, I don't know, they just moved on from hating on little girls, I guess. Then after I talked about Power Rangers, I brought up, Jack of the Red Hearts. This movie I did watch, but not in its entirety. I did also watch the trailer, but when I was watching the movie, I stopped after a certain point due to time, and honestly, I should have just picked up where I left off and finished the rest of it, because for all I know, it could have, like, in the end ended up being, like, ableist shit. I don't fucking know. From what I saw of the movie, it seemed to have handled the source material. Let me say source material. It handled the subject matter tastefully, but, like, it really feels like the caveat to getting, like, a tasteful movie centered around the topic is that they end up being pretentious as fuck. Like, it's either they're offensive or pretentious. Like, there's no way to just avoid either. And it sucks! Because it does, like, so much well, but, like, okay, if you want to do, like, some some filming, like clever filmmaking, like, okay, sure. What's so fucking clever of having a rainbow on her eye? Like, straight up. Like, oh gee, I wonder what that symbolizes.
Obviously she must be gay.
No, but like, actually... like, actually, it's just so unfortunate, and like I don't blame the actress, but she does tend to overact a bit, and I blame that more on the directing than the actual acting. But like, and I always say that whenever she like bites into a mouth suppressant toy or whatever, or like she gets stimulated just in general. Otherwise, like, her acting is fine. I do not know whether or not the character has the disability, but I've made my stance known to a lot of people, but I'll reiterate it here. I do not give a shit whether or not you have ASD or not. If you play a convincing character, then you've convinced me and it works. Like, Dustin Hoffman is a perfect example of that, because he actually went out and, like, put in the effort to portray as accurate of a portrayal as he possibly could. From what I saw in this film, she was okay. Like, the character she played was very high needs, so, and, like, this is something that I want to emphasize. So, I mentioned in the video, like, oh, like she's nonverbal, but then she's actually able to say, certain words due to, like, coaching and whatever. And I want it to be known that does not indicate that it is, like, a fixable disorder, a curable disorder. That is not the case. You can always improve on, like, your setbacks. The disability just makes it so that you can never really 100% make it there. And, like, obviously it's different for different people. Blah, 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 blah. You get it. It's, like, from my experience, I have had times where I, like, kind of acted very immaturely, and as I grew up and got older, I've been able to improve on maturing in different aspects, and I am now able to hold myself to the degree that I can now because of my desire to want to improve and my ability and my choice to get better. Not everyone has that luxury, and even then I'm still, like, I'm able to hide it well, but the easiest example that I've kind of coined for myself is the way I see it when it comes to my disability and my ability to surpass it. Do you know in math that that graph that dips near zero and goes down a straight line, not exactly like parallel to it, but getting slightly closer, but theoretically never actually reaches zero? I'll put on an example on screen so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Like, the idea is that even though it always gets closer to zero, it never reaches it. That is the best that I can describe my own experience with my growth through my disorder, is that I always do improve, but I'm never gonna be able to surpass it. I'm never gonna get perfect. And I've realized that early on. I just kind of had to come to terms with that, and I know a lot of people are still struggling with that and will always struggle with that because it's very existential, you know? It's like, everyone around me is just able to do this shit that I can't. But, like, literally everything that I just described, you take out the autism aspect of that, and it's like, yeah, that just sounds like growth. That just sounds like a human being. So, like, it doesn't really make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things. It's just kind of the way I am, you know? It's kind of the way we are. So that's my stance on that. And that's kind of what I was trying to express when I was talking about Jack of the Red Hearts, and the growth of that character. Like, it's not something to like, it's been on my mind because the way I describe it in the video, it sounds like, oh, she's like, growing past her disability. No, she's just getting better at learning how to do things despite her disability. Like, it's still there. It's just that she genuinely wants to be able to speak, and nonverbal people can become verbal, or at least like nonverbal individuals can talk. It just they're not as and their pronunciation just isn't there all the time. That's all I will say on that. At least from the experience that I've had. It makes communicating difficult for sure, but I can only imagine the frustration. Like, imagine if you just wanted to express how you felt to someone, but you could not talk. Like, that is the frustration they deal with on a daily basis. It fucking sucks. But that's a discussion for another time, I suppose. All right, now we get into actual bullshit territory. Ring the alarms. It's the Predator. Woo woo. Oh my god. Okay. So the fucking nerve of this movie to make a claim like that. Like, in case you need a refresher, this movie has a plot point, like an actually important plot point, where they say, like, autism, it hurts to say it every time, autism is the next step in human evolution. And the moment I heard that the movie was advocating that, the moment I immediately put that up towards a firing squad, because oh my fucking god. Okay, I'm gonna do my best to try and like contain my fury right now so that I can be coherent, but I can only go so far. Anyway, this piece of shit film, there's a lot wrong with this film just in general, but for the sake of focusing on like the actual like stuff that I want to talk about that's relevant to the paper/video, I tried doing some research on like why the fuck they thought this was an okay idea, and I looked into it, and there were some dumbass articles that were actually praising this inclusion. It's like, oh, it was like it was very praiseworthy of them to include some fucking theory that some hack scientists with actual credentials theorized. And I looked at, like, I tried looking at what this guy was trying to explain, and I could not get all that far, because just off the bat, one, he was using pretentious language that sounded smarter than it was to convince people who, like, you know, those people that would fall for NFTs, they're the same people who would believe this bullshit, because it's like, you know, I don't understand it, but I believe, you know, that kind of shit. And two, from what I was able to comprehend, it was a complete ass pull. It's like they're using science as an excuse to try and make autism out to be something fucking amazing. And like, I've had conversation with people, like my own parents even, like they pose this question like, well, shouldn't you like be flattered by the, and I'm like, no. And this entire video is a perfect example. There is so much over-exaggerative flattery of autism to the point where it is actually like romanticized in a strange fetishistic fetishized way. Fucking, I don't know the word. It's become... Like, Hollywood looks at it as for a marketing push. They don't actually give a shit about, like, its portrayal. Meanwhile, the people consuming it, who live in bumfuck Alabama or whatever, just... apologies to anyone in Alabama, but, like, like, just people who, like, don't really have a lot of experience with the outside world, essentially, will just look at that shit and go, yeah, I guess that's how it is then. Like, that's why this shit is destructive and upsetting. I doubt that they were actually looking at some fucking, like, theory that some guy made out of his ass to try and, like... I don't even know what his intentions could have been, but, like, obviously for manipulation purposes, or like, he just wanted to be famous by thinking of something that other people would find smart. Like, I'm willing to bet that the fucking, like these articles that are jacking it off because that's how they make their money, like, these articles were probably just, giving it too much credit, because I'm willing to bet these fucking hacks who made this goddamn film, they probably just wanted to take an angle, and it's like we need to pick, like, some people who could be, like, humans but more advanced, but we wanted to tie it to reality to add to that realism. You know, autism is kind of smart, right? Yeah, obviously, everyone else says it is. And then you get a vicious cycle. And that is why it's... Like, if I were to be like, oh, like, yeah, I'm so fucking smart, I'm, like, everyone around me is, like, just better than everyone else, what kind of pressure am I supposed to expect from that? Like, I'm just gonna have so much thrust upon me, and when I can't live up to it, like, I'm just gonna look so fucking dumb. Which is an actual thing that I bring up in the video that someone else has experienced for real. So this is not just, like, something theory. This is, like, legit real. And that's why The Predator is so offensive. Fuck this movie. Holy shit. God, I'm only halfway done with this. I apologize for the length of this. Just, man. Okay, literature time. Extremely loud and incredibly close. I'm gonna power through these as fast as I possibly can. So, this book, I read back in, like, middle school, and when I did, like, I felt myself relate so extremely to the character in the book, and I really liked the book because of that. Looking back at it now, his age is kind of a weird factor. It's not really something I think about all that much. But considering, like, I was, like, 12 or 13 or whatever, and he was, like, 9, it wasn't that big of an age difference. Though, like, one could make the argument that it's still, like, kind of unrealistic. Maybe if the guy, like, was just a moody teenager, like, it would have been, like, more reasonable, but, like, if you ignore the factor of his age, which I most certainly did when reading it, I kind of feel like it does its job really, really well in terms of, like, engrossing you with this character and relating to it a lot. And you feel for his plight and, like, the drama that unfolds and, like, the revelations and all that crap. I'm not going to spoil everything because I do genuinely, like, if you still read or you want an audiobook, I would definitely recommend this book. I would recommend the physical version over the audiobook because this book uses the format of it being a book to its advantage, and listening to it in an audiobook format is just not going to do it justice. Like, I had the physical book and listened to it over audiobook because of, like, it's just easier for me because I'm not good at reading fast, right? Either. Like, I can't write fast or read fast. It's fucking useless. So, like, obviously I don't want to spoil like what it does to enhance the experience, but there are things in the book that make it way more of an entertaining experience to read than just the audiobook. If you need it for whatever disability reasons, I would still highly recommending having a physical copy on hand, just to like still retain that experience. Because if you just go by the audiobook, you miss out on very important details. That's all I'll say about that. You can skip the movie. Fuck the movie. I don't really give a shit about it. Now, would the character be good as autistic representation? It's hard to say, because it's clear that the guy who wrote the book didn't originally intend it to be that way. So, like, it's hard for me to say whether or not, like, this is what sucks, man. Like, one of the best examples you could go for was unintentional. Do you know how demoralizing that feels? It fucking sucks, dude! Whatever, for the sake of argument, like, it's fine. But, like, it does feel like a bit of a cop-out, you know? It's just like, oh, it's whatever you want to impose on the character. It's like, my general rule of thumb is, if it's not important to bring up in the narrative, then it probably doesn't exist. Like, you could say what isn't canon, obviously. Like, I know with the game Celeste, like, the character of Madeline, she's trans, but it was never brought up in game. It's just the creator was just like, you know, the more I thought about it, and her plight, like, it's clear that she is transgender, and it's just like, okay, I guess. It doesn't add or take away anything from the, like, in my opinion, like, when it comes to the story of Celeste, I'm talking about Celeste now, get over it. I think that the genius of the narrative of that game was the open-ended nature of her plight, so that you could self-impose your own situation onto her, so that you could, like, relate to the fact that she is struggling with, like, identity and acceptance and all that. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be about her accepting herself as being trans. Like, it could just be, like, some other sense of identity. Like, it could just be accepting the fact that, I'm just throwing it out there, maybe she's autistic. You don't fucking know. But, you know, the guy literally is the god of that game, so I can't really... I can't really discredit him. It's just... like, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but... if it's not necessary to bring up, then who's to say it's canon? It doesn't matter. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to go off on that soon enough. But first, there is no ad, but there is Mockingbird. Can I just say, it was really hard to find examples of representation in literature, because it's not really explored as much as it is everywhere else, or at least not as well known, from what I could find. There was, like, I knew I had to have, like, a section to, like, pad out the pages of the paper, but, like, I'm like, I wonder how many video games there are with autism, and the only thing I was able to find was some Overwatch character. And I'm not touching that. Like, oh wow, I have an entire section of my paper for this one character in Overwatch. Whoop-de-doo. TLDR, she is 100% a savant, and there is no way around it. She literally uses tech. Anyway, yeah, just, Mockingbird. So, like, when I stumbled the reason I brought that up is because I find Mockingbird, and I pretty much read it start to finish. It was a very short book, but it was really, really good, because it puts you into the mind of a very young adolescence. And like someone of that age with that disability, having to mourn and cope with loss, like, is very interesting. I have nothing to say. Like, it was just a good book. I have nothing but praise for it. Like, it was definitely a little confusing because, you know, it is a book that is called Mockingbird. Of course, people are going to start getting confused about that because of To Kill a Mockingbird, obviously. But despite that, I do think that it's able to stand on its own. And if you have a knack for reading, I definitely recommend checking out this book. It is wonderful. Now, for The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. So, interestingly enough, I was able to find an audio recording of an interview that I think some radio or whatever had with the author, and that was the audio that I put into the video, where I even like show his face. Like, that is that guy when I googled him. And his statement about, oh, I don't want him to be labeled, so I didn't bring it up in the book. But, like, it's clear that was his intention from the very start. I have something to say about that. And I didn't really delve deep enough into it in my original video because I was still figuring out my thoughts about how to feel about that. But I have come to a conclusion.
That's fucking shit.
Let me be clear. I understand, you know, you don't want people to be only defined by their negative characteristics. But my question is, what about my autism do you see as negative? Mark? Okay. What about my fucking autism is, like, so negatively perceived by you that even just acknowledging it would have me, like, put down by it? Mark? What about that? Okay. Again, I'm going to try and contain my rage. Like, this is my philosophy on life. I don't give a shit about anyone's good intentions. All that matters is the actions that they themselves produce. He had good intentions. I will acknowledge that. God forbid someone else is, like, able to bring up this and, like, have him see stuff in a different way. Like, this is the thing, right? Let's say for a hypothetical, you got, like, I think I even brought this up in the video. I forget if I did or not. But, like, let's say, like, you have someone in a wheelchair and, like, oh yeah, I'm a cripple or whatever, and I need to use the ramp in order to get through doors. It's like, does that define his character? No. It doesn't define him. It's just an aspect of him. You're the one who's choosing to define it when acknowledging it, alright? Like, if I were to ignore the fact that I'm autistic, then I would never be able to get half the shit done that I want to. Because I need to properly accommodate myself in order to, like, do things the way they need to be done. That's just how it is. If I act ignorant towards my own condition, then that's ableist of myself. Listen, dude, okay, like, I know you just didn't want to... I know you didn't want to make the book about, like, some guy with a disability, but, like, if your intention was to write him with that mindset and to pretend he doesn't have it throughout the entire book, then it's not fair to him. oh, I like eating a roasted chicken every Thursday of March. Like, does that define my character? No! Not unless you're a really bad writer that can't provide any actual personality to a person. It's a quirky, weird trait, but that doesn't make him just that. Like, that's... Autism is not a trait to put onto a character, nor is it a setback to be defined by. A character is not defined by a disability out of their control, but they are defined by the actions that they partake in. If you want me to give a thesis statement on anything that I've done the research on for this paper, then there you go. That is what I've been trying to express for the past goddamn who knows how long. Like, no one is defined by what they cannot control, but only what they do. That's it. And with that, I'm done with the... But, like, okay. Like I said, I couldn't find too many examples in literature, so that's why it was, like, the shortest segment. Also, ain't nobody got time to read a ton of books. Alright? Like, movies, like, I spend an hour long on it at most. Otherwise, it's like... I just don't have the time for it. I'm very thankful that Mockingbird was as short as it was. Now, this is where things get interesting. The news and internet section. Okay, so the news and internet section is definitely the weirdest fucking direction I could have gone with the research, but like, oh my god. Like, it is a type of media, so I had to cover it, and that's probably where it's, like, the most prevalent anyway. But, holy shit! Just... I don't know what else to say. It's just so fucking weird. Okay. So. Vaccines and autism. You all know it's false. I don't need to tell you that. The people who believe that are, like, they look to be afraid of something. They look to find something not to trust, to justify, like, their own irrationality. I am not a psychologist that can tell you why that is. I am not someone who has been looking into that and studying it as broadly as other people. I recommended a video in my video called Vaccines, A Measured Response by H. Bomber Guy. I 100% recommend checking out that video because he goes into way more in depth on the concept than I had the luxury of doing in my video. And yeah, like, I was under the impression, oh, he just did it because, like, some fucking parents paid him off to do it. No, he was doing it to scam people in order to buy his goddamn miracle vaccine. He's such a scummy human being, and he started a movement of conspirators. Shit sucks, man. Then there are school shootings. So, I was not aware of this before doing research, but apparently there is a lot of commotion around people involved with school shootings being autistic. Obviously, when I did this research on the paper, it was back when we actually went to schools and there were actual shootings to be concerned over. The pandemic kind of led to a deviation from that, in where because overpopulated areas were no longer, like, readily available, there was no incentive for people to go shoot up a place. So it kind of died down, so it being brought up in the video, it feels like almost a little bit out of touch. However, the point still stands. Back then, like, I say that, it was only like a few years ago. Like, back then, like, that was like a prominent point of contention for people arguing about, like, school shooters. It's just like, oh, it's just the mentally unhealthy. They're just autistic dumbasses. It's like, no. Okay, listen. Just because you're a moody autistic child does not make you a school shooter, okay? I want to make that very clear. Now, could you be a moody autistic teenager and be a school shooter? Yeah. I would predict that you probably wouldn't have the balls to go out and do it, though you might fantasize over it, but like, I 9 times out of 10, people on the spectrum tend to be a lot more like sympathetic, empathetic. So to say like they're more likely to cause a shooting is completely ass backwards. But now I'm just getting to point without actually. I'm getting into points without statistics to back myself up, so I'm just going to back up from there. Yeah, I've already proved it in the video. Shit is just not true. And if you genuinely think that those with ASD are more prone to violence, then clearly you haven't played enough video games. Okay, so then we get into memes. The first time I saw autistic screeching, I was very conflicted. I've already expressed my conflicted nature of the meme in the video, and I do feel like I need to emphasize, like, this is so weird, man, because internet humor is, like, naturally very edgy. Like, obviously, like it's really just about the culture around, like, it's so awkward, because, like, I don't want to defend this shit, because it's obviously, like, kind of sus, but, like, at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm guilty of this too, those with ASD tend to have very nasally, high-pitched voices. I don't know why that is. I have no idea what the reason for that is. However, that seems to be like a common trend, and because of that, it's led to whenever they overreact, they tend to be very high-pitched and obnoxious, which is why the meme took off the way it did. It's admittedly a very good descriptor. The problem is that it technically is ableist. And I feel like I gave it a little too much credit in the video, because I know the meme itself is not actually offensive, but if I have to go by my own logic, it doesn't matter what the intention behind it was. It doesn't, but whatever. Point still stands. I'm just conflicted over it, man. It's not all that funny, but like I get it, you know? Then I talk about, like, the use of character. Like, obviously I could have gone about, like, a better way of, like, describing, like, pro tags, side characters. Like, I had, like, horrible descriptive language during that section, and I do apologize for that if I ended up confusing people. I'm not much of a writer myself, so these terminologies are not, like, second nature to me. I'm like, I critique stuff all the time, but I'm not, like, a critic, you know? It's just kind of awkward for me to try and express that crap, but, like, whatever. And then I go into, like, some, like, good practices, good examples and stuff. I talk about, I think his name was Oscar from Extremely Loud, but then I talk about Julia from Sesame Street. I have actually seen some episodes of Sesame Street with Julia in it. Like, Like I went on my way to find some episodes, including her debut episode, and I have to say, leave it to Sesame Street to like actually do what needs to be done to get it done. The Sesame Street people, like it's not even just like with English, like across the world with their programs, they do a great job of just making proper informal educational content for children with what they need to understand. And I feel like Julia is the perfect example of a modern character for the show. It's also kind of surreal because I have a sister named Julia, and I have another sister who is like studying psychiatrics. So it's like you got both my sisters in like one character. It's very fucking weird for me, but like, and then you got my autism in it. So it's just like the whole family is just whatever. Now I'm projecting. Anyway. No, but for real, Julia is a great character, and I cannot praise her enough. Like, she is 100% the most thought out character that I've went into examples of, and that is why I wanted to showcase her at the end here, because she does such a good job. Okay, I need. This is what I've been dreading the entire time making this follow-up video. I need to address the Temple Grandin shit. So, you probably noticed that when I started talking about this movie, that I had a big-ass disclaimer at the beginning of the discussion of this film. Now, originally I was just going to use this as another example to pull from, but when I ended up making this best for like the film section, but when I decided to like make a best practices section, and I wanted to point out like perfect examples, really good examples, she just ended up falling into that category instead, because I need to emphasize this. The film and the editing were top notch. Like, I can't explain it. You have to see it to understand. The way that the film is put together really puts you into the head of this character. And you really come to understand her perspective and sympathize with her, like, way more than you could if you just saw her normally. That being said, despite all of the praise that I can give to this film, Temple Grandin as a person, like she is a real-life person, is complicated. The thing with Temple Grandin is that, like, I do research on her, right? And, like, I find all this stuff she's accomplished, like, she's won awards, she's done so much innovation for the cattle industry, blah, 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 blah. She's, like, a very wonderfully influential woman. She's done so much to bring awareness, but she's also pro-eugenics. That is the extent of it. So I need to emphasize, this woman has gone on record stating that she believes that we should intentionally, like through breeding, like encourage the passing on of more favorable autistic traits and leave out the less desirable ones. And if that sounds familiar, that's because that's the exact shit that fucking Asperger was trying to do for the goddamn Nazis. How poetic. Look, I don't know what to do about this, because it's like, by the time I found out about this information about her, I'd already had it written in the paper. I already recorded it for the video. Everything was already figured out. The issue lies in the fact that it's really hard to find any information about her ableist statements, because Google is just such a wonderful fucking company. Typing in the word eugenics doesn't bring up any results. The most I was able to get were some Tumblr posts or something of people saying she's discredited now because she's ableist. Temple Grandin is just horrible now, and it's I agree, it's a horrible fucking thing to say, but where the fuck did she say this? I can't find any information on this. It's actually kind of annoying for me. So yeah, it's so weird. I didn't find out about this crap until after I'd already done some research, because this shit didn't show up when I did my original research. And then going through social media, people were advocating she is pro-eugenics, and I'm just wait, what? I had a friend that brought up, and I didn't really think of it till now, because she didn't really... She was wasn't she? And I'm is she? I didn't see anything about it. She was I don't know. And then I looked into it, and yeah, it turns out she was. I guess. But I can't see where she's made those statements, because it's not brought up on the Wikipedia page. Anytime I try to search for it, it's just other people commenting on that she said it. I don't know. Maybe someone out there could help put me in the right direction for it, but I just can't find where she's made those statements. But I believe everyone who says it, because I'd be an asshole not to. That being said, knowing this and putting that big ass disclaimer in the video, why did I decide to still praise the video? And I realize I'm going to get a lot of controversy for this take. I realize not everyone is going to agree with me, and I 100% get that, and I understand. This is just how I see it. Having studied film for a long time now, it comes to a point where the media you study tends to come from an age where shit was just very offensive, but it's still worth studying for the sake of how historically important it ended up being. Now, the thing with an easy example is Birth of a Nation. If you hear that name and don't shudder in your goddamn seat, then you've never had to study film in your life. Birth of a Nation was one of the first films ever made to incorporate concepts that feel novel today. It was easy example, first film to have a scene where someone takes out a letter and starts reading it, and then it fade transitions into what is written on the letter. It was the first film to ever really do something like that. The guy directing it was a genius for his time. The problem is, the film is KKK propaganda. I'm pretty sure I don't need to elaborate why that's fucking horrible. But anyway. Yes, the film was historically significant and we study it in class. However, we acknowledge that it's fucking horrible and offensive for the content that it provides. But we're not going to pretend like it doesn't exist. That is the mentality I'm choosing to go with this film. Sure, the subject of the film has become problematic later on, probably after the film was made or whatever, I'm not quite sure. But the actual content and editing that was used in the film was masterfully utilized, in my opinion, to where it is a wonderful viewpoint to look at to get, look, man, it really shows that I'm struggling for good examples when this is what I'm left with, okay? I'm sorry, just let me have it. Again, if you don't agree with me, I 100% get it. I do not blame you. It isn't it isn't a good situation for me to be in. But while I discount the person herself, I cannot pretend that this film does not exist, because what it does amazingly well. And I'm sorry that I had to acknowledge her existence in order to do so. Then I talk about my own experience, and then I just go into the conclusion and how it could affect people mentally. And I say we live in a society, and it's fucking funny. Then I talk about SJWs for a little bit. The reason I bring up SJWs is because there are those kinds of people out there who are SJWs that try to use my disability as a defense to say, what, are you ableist? I didn't bring it up. I probably shouldn't have, because I wasn't able to develop anything on it. I wasn't able to provide any resources to back up my points. I kind of made a straw man out of that. Admittedly, that being said, I do feel like the notion still stands that they try to defend, bad practices with, we're bringing attention to it, so we're obviously doing the right thing. But then I could get into my whole intentions debate again. So more or less, that is everything that I have to say about that video. I hope I was better able to clear the air on some things. If you have any more questions, concerns, or just things you want to shit on me for, by all means, leave them in the comments or do whatever. I barely get any, and so there's a good chance that I will reply to you if you leave one. And before I finish this up, there is one thing that I do want to address. You're probably wondering, because I actually did get people wondering about this, why did I not talk about Music? The film from, I believe it was I think it came out in 2020 or something, I forget. It really, the less I give a shit about the nature of that movie, the better my life is going to be. Basically, the reason I did not talk about Music is because that film was announced and came out after, not only when I had finished the paper, but also after I had recorded the video. That film got off easy, but if you want to know my thoughts, it is a problematic piece of shit film that was made for the sake of selling a fucking album, and the idea of joy porn or happiness porn or positivity porn, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I am all about using certain media for the sake of being more cheerful, but there's content that you can engage with that doesn't have to go that far. An easy example is something like Pokemon. It's always pretty cheerful unless you're reading the Pokedex descriptions of ghost types or whatever. But I feel like the strongest pieces of media are the ones that are multi-layered and complex. Her ableist piece of shit snuff film can go rot in a dumpster fire for all I care. I went on a tirade about it on Instagram for a short period. But my notion still stands. Like, if your intention was to originally cast someone who was autistic, but then you ended up not doing it because it was too much work, then you are the problem. You accommodate them. That's what accommodations are. But you probably don't know what that is, because that would have involved research. See ya. Alright, I'm getting angry again. So, if you want to know my full thoughts, I will link a video to Cynical Reviews in the description. He went by it point by point, and despite not having ASD himself, I can confidently say he speaks for me in every respect for what he says in the video. Because never in my life have I agreed with someone so perfectly in my life. He pretty much expresses everything that I wanted to. So the idea of me talking about it would just be redundant, especially with everyone else who's talked about it as well. Regardless, piece of shit film. Yeah, I guess if I had to categorize it, like, it falls into the slow stereotype, which is nice to have another example, I guess, of that, but, like, yeah, it's also just very problematic for various other reasons that I'm sure you've already heard ad nauseum at this point. So yeah, that's why I didn't speak of that movie, and that's all I have to add to my video. I guess to close this off, I'm very thankful for anyone who has spent the time to hear me go on about a single topic for this fucking long. But what can I say? It's a hyperfixation. Literally, I had to use the power. I had to use the aspects of my own disability in order to get myself to do this project. Let me tell you something, man. Like, I actually was so engaged with this paper that it was like all I could think about for that entire semester. And then when I was done, I like dropped it like a ton of bricks. It was so weird. 'Tis the nature of the game. But yeah, to really give a example of like how engrossed I was with the topic of my paper, everyone around me was like struggling to figure out what to do with their paper, and they were like stressing out about it all the time. I was breezing through the process of this paper, man. I've never had a more easy project in my life, despite its length, despite its animosity, despite the time that I had to take in order to put it all together. It was a breeze. So much so that I was able to finish it like a week before I had to properly like finish the class. Everyone was struggling to get it done by the deadline, but like I'm just like either I don't have a life, or it was just that natural for me to do. And let me tell you something, I still don't have a life, but whatever. Anyway, the point still stands, is that this was something that was very important to me, something I'm very passionate about. Because like, when it comes to like online discourse of like representation and like minorities, just in general, and like, yes, being autistic does make you a minority, technically. It's so strange, because the last thing I want to compare myself to is someone of a different race or sexual orientation that I can't comprehend. Well, not to say I can't comprehend, but like, that I can't 100% relate to, because I'm not that. Like, I'm as straight and white as they come, man. Like, it sucks. No, but like, for real, it's strange, because there's all these movements for, like, all these different, like, aspects of humanity, and, like, we're still struggling with that. There's still racism, sexism, homophobia, like, everywhere. But who the fuck talks about ableism, man? Who the fuck is out there, like, trying to, like, speak up for those with ASD? Who the fuck talks about ASD? Like, did you even know that it's also called ASD, like, before my video? Because I certainly didn't know it abbreviated to that until I did. I did the research for it, I mean. It's crazy how, like, and then, like, I go online and I find there's a whole, like, section of the internet of people trying so hard to bring awareness to this shit. And then, like, the only people they're talking to are people who are just gonna forget it the next day, or the next hour, more realistically, or people who are already familiar with the topic to begin with. So the most they could do is just coach each other. It sucks, man! Like, it feels like we're not really able to have the chance to, like... This is why I look at shit like the Caitlyn Jenner thing, where it's like, I didn't even know what a trans person was. I've never heard of that concept until, like, she became, like, the face of it all. And, like, yeah, people know about autism, clearly, but they don't get it, you know? Like, unless you've had to live with someone or you've had it yourself, you don't fucking get it. Like, you're basically just Tom Cruise and Rain Man, essentially. It's weird, man. I just... Like, for what it's worth, I'm trying to do what I can to spread that awareness. And, like, it's like I said, I don't expect to be like, the next MLK or some cringy bullshit like that. Like, I just want to do what I can, because if I don't, then what the fuck am I supposed to do? It's definitely a topic that I do want to bring more awareness to, but I don't know how else I can do it other than what I've already done. The content that I make on YouTube is more or less meant to be entertaining. I try to just give a distraction from, like, everyday shit, and I just try to have fun and make things, like, fun. You know, I try to entertain. But when I want to talk about something serious, I will talk about it. I want to, and this is a main reason why I've also taken down, like, that Valley Folk video, is, like, I want to be able to look back at my YouTube channel and be proud of the impact that it's left. And whether that be for entertainment purposes or educational purposes, then so be it. Obviously, like, I am the curator of this channel, I do what I want, but, like, my main focus is for shit to be entertaining. That is only taken secondary towards being informative. Obviously, I tried to make the video as entertaining as I could, but I could only go so far with that for the serious nature of some of the subject matter, obviously. So yeah, don't expect me to go this far with another video again. First of all, I am never making anything that long again in my fucking life. Holy shit, the Nuzlocke was long, but at least the effort that I put into it was mostly, like, the illustrations and the intro. Like, this shit was, like, much longer, and there were intricate edits all over the place. You ever cut up 3 hours worth of audio? Fucking sucks. Whatever, I'm just repeating myself at this point. Yeah, I don't plan on getting serious again anytime soon either. I'm there's definitely a lot of other things that I want to do with this channel. I definitely want to get back to the Fossil Fighters playthrough. But that's been on like such a hiatus because that was literally filler content. But it is, you know, I finished on this, like I might as well focus on that as well. I have another idea for a series that I would want to do, although that one would also take an immeasurably long amount of time. But it's still something that I feel like I should partake in to some degree. But I'll get to that when I get the chance. We'll see. Otherwise, that's been me. Thank you for your time. And I don't usually ask this because my content is just there for the sake of being it, but like, this is the only time I will ever ask, please share the Autism in Media video, because I just, like, again, this is the only time I'll ask this, but like, this is a video that, like, not only have I spent a lot of time on, but it's something that I'm deeply passionate about, and I just want the message of it to be spread. Even if you don't want to share the video directly, just like encourage the education of these points and know what the fuck you're talking about, please. Again, thank you for watching, and I guess I'll see you the next chance I get. Hopefully, like, behind the scenes situation can be fixed. Bet. Thanks again. Goodbye. Beans!